I didn't die the first time my heart stopped, or the second. The third time, at exactly 4:37 p.m. on a Tuesday, I almost hoped it would stick because no one was there to notice. I found out later that while alarms screamed above my bed, my family was downstairs arguing over lunch prices. Not praying, not waiting. Debating whether an $8 salad was a scam? A nurse told me afterward, her jaw tight, voice shaking like she was holding herself back. "I've never seen anything like them," she said. 15 years in emergency care and my blood still chilled her. But I'm jumping ahead. 3 weeks earlier, my body had been a machine. Early 30s, long-distance runner, meal prep on Sundays, yoga on Thursdays. The kind of discipline people mock until they secretly envy it. My wife used to tease me for it, said I'd probably outlive everyone just to prove a point. That joke curdled fast. The diagnosis was simple: inflamed appendix, routine fix, tiny incisions, same-day discharge. The surgeon smiled like this was a formality, tracing diagrams on a tablet while I nodded, relaxed, already planning my next run. My wife was overseas closing a deal worth more than most hospitals. When I told her, she paused, just a second too long, then offered to come back immediately. I laughed it off, told her to stay, said my parents would handle it. That was my first real mistake. My mother arrived late, annoyed, blaming traffic like it was a personal insult. My father didn't even step out of the car, his voice muffled through the window, still negotiating something that clearly mattered more. My sister didn't show at all. She sent a message instead, said hospitals didn't match her brand, added laughing emojis like that softened it. The surgery itself went flawlessly. Early morning, clean incisions. By mid-morning, I was awake, joking with nurses, asking for ice chips. Everything felt under control. Then the heat crept in, first subtle, then oppressive. My skin burned while my hands went numb. The smell came next, sweet, wrong, clinging to the air like something dead pretending not to be. By evening, I couldn't move my fingers. By night, the room filled with people who stopped smiling. They spoke in clipped sentences, eyes avoiding mine. One of them said a phrase so calmly it felt unreal, a kind of infection that doesn't wait, that eats while you're still breathing. They needed to cut again. Immediately. I remember looking toward the corner where my family stood. My mother was scrolling, nails tapping the screen, already irritated. She didn't look up when she spoke. Just asked how much another surgery would add to the bill. The room went quiet in a way that pressed on my ears. One doctor stared at her like she'd misheard. Explained, slowly, that minutes mattered now. That delays meant loss measured in body parts. Or worse. My mother sighed, finally meeting her eyes. "I heard you," she said. "I'm just asking what this is going to cost." That was when I realized something I wouldn't fully understand until much later. I was already alone, long before my heart ever stopped. They didn't even lower their voices. My mother crossed her arms, eyes glued to her phone, and said it like she was ordering coffee. "High deductible. 5,000, we're already past 3. Her tone carried no urgency, just calculation. Across from her, the surgeon's jaw flexed once, tight enough I noticed it through the haze. She tried to redirect, tried to bring it back to blood loss and time and tissue dying by the minute. "No," my mother said, still not looking up. "We'll talk about it now." My father finally joined the conversation without closing his laptop. Suit still on, glasses perched low. He asked for an estimate before signing anything, like the numbers mattered more than the fact that my left leg was already gone to me, numb and useless, my chest barely rising on its own. I wanted to scream, my mouth opened. Nothing came out. They argued for 23 minutes. I know the number because the clock was the only thing I could still focus on. My stomach ballooned under the sheet. My vision tunneled. Numbers on the monitor slid downward, one quiet alarm after another. My skin felt cold, then hot, then not mine at all. Somewhere above me, adults debated paperwork while my body failed in real time. Eventually, someone else decided for them. The infectious disease specialist didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He invoked a law that existed for moments like this, when families became obstacles. Surgery would happen, consent or not. My parents threatened lawsuits. Then they signed. 4 hours disappeared. When I surfaced in intensive care before dawn, my abdomen was open, packed, burning in a way painkillers couldn't reach. Tubes everywhere. My father slept in the chair beside me, mouth open, snoring softly like this was an airport lounge. My mother wasn't there. A nurse told me she'd gone home, needed real sleep. The next day brought words that sounded final, even when spoken gently. The infection was in my blood now. Organs struggling, kidneys barely working. The doctor explained it slowly, like translating into a language my parents might understand. My mother frowned at her screen and asked how long the ICU stay would be. At least a week. My father stood up then, irritation snapping into anger. They had plans, a trip. Reservations made months ago. Wine country. The doctor just looked at him. Didn't blink. The silence stretched until the machines filled it. Beeps, hisses, someone else's heart keeping time. He asked if my father understood what multi-organ failure meant. My father said he understood exaggeration. Said I was young. Said there must be medicine for kidneys. There was. But there were limits. Dialysis hovered just ahead, waiting if things dipped any lower. My mother finally looked up, asked what dialysis cost. I closed my eyes. Let the machines watch what was left of me. Thought about my wife on the other side of the world, standing in boardrooms, controlling rooms full of powerful people without ever raising her voice. I should have called her, should have said it was bad. I didn't. I told myself I was protecting her. By the third day, my kidneys were barely holding on. A specialist explained renal failure while my parents nodded, bored, like he was outlining a user manual they'd never read. That afternoon, my sister finally arrived. Sunglasses indoors, expensive coffee in hand. She wrinkled her nose at the room, complained about the smell. A nurse answered without softening it, said it was my body breaking down. My sister lifted her phone, asked if she could film, said people were asking for updates. The nurse stepped between us. No, she said. And for the first time since this started, someone said it like it mattered. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about people being sensitive, then slipped the phone back into her bag. She stayed exactly 4 minutes longer, long enough to scroll, sigh, and remember she had somewhere better to be. An event. Cameras. Free champagne. She blew a kiss in my direction without touching me, said my nickname like it was a joke, and walked out. Her heels echoed down the corridor, sharp and fast, like punctuation at the end of a sentence I hadn't finished reading. That night at 9:23 p.m., everything went dark. There was no warning, no pain, just a sudden sense that the plug had been yanked from the wall. One moment I existed. The next there was nothing, no sound, no thought, no fear. Then chaos slammed back in. Alarms screamed, hands pressed hard against my chest. Electricity tore through me, my body jerking violently, unwillingly. Somewhere, a monitor found a rhythm again. I came back to noise and light and the taste of metal. My mother arrived 10 minutes later, stepping into the room while nurses were still untangling wires and adjusting drips. She looked around, confused, mildly irritated, and asked what happened. The surgeon answered plainly. Said my heart had stopped. Said they'd gotten it back. Said my body was under extreme strain. My mother nodded once, then asked if the resuscitation would be billed separately. Said she'd been watching the charges update online and things kept popping up. The surgeon stared at her like she'd misheard the question. Explained carefully that I'd gone into cardiac arrest. My mother repeated herself, slower this time, as if clarity was the issue. The surgeon's face hardened into something smooth and cold, a mask pulled tight. She redirected her to billing and turned away. Already done. The next day, it happened again. 1:47 p.m. My heart quit while my parents were downstairs eating lunch, arguing over salad prices. When they returned hours later, a nurse told them what they'd missed. My father's first response wasn't relief. It was a question about equipment costs. The nurse looked at him for a long second, then walked out without answering. I found out later she locked herself in the break room and cried until her shift ended. By the fifth day, machines were doing work my body no longer could. Blood filtered, waste removed, monitors watching every fragile beat. Another doctor joined the swarm, this one for my heart. She spoke gently but directly, said they needed to discuss how far to go next time. Because there would be a next time. My mother exhaled loudly like someone stuck in traffic, asked how far translated financially. The doctor didn't flinch, but something sharpened behind her eyes. She explained the goal was survival. My father countered with budgets and limits and obligations. Then the doctor mentioned insurance, mentioned caps, mentioned that everything was already covered. The room shifted. My mother leaned back, suddenly relaxed. Said that changed things. The doctor asked quietly if it really should. My father stood defensive now, talking about responsibilities. Other children. Future plans. Deposits already paid. I listened to them explain, calmly, logically, why those things mattered more than the body failing in the bed between them. I wanted to call my wife. Needed to. But my hands wouldn't close around the phone. My voice barely carried. Nurses bent close just to hear me ask for water. Day 6. Wednesday, mid-afternoon. The worst one yet. At 2:17 p.m., my heart stopped again. The third time they shocked me back, my body rebelled. Electricity tore through my chest, followed by a drug so aggressive it felt like fire racing through whatever organs were still cooperating. It worked, but barely. My heart staggered back into rhythm like it resented being forced. The monitor steadied just long enough for everyone to breathe again. Then, at 4:37 p.m., it quit. Again. Fourth time overall. Second that day. And this time, the room was empty of anyone who shared my last name. My parents had left an hour earlier. Errands, my mother said, patting my hand like I was something fragile but inconvenient. Hang in there. The crash cart didn't ask permission. The room exploded into motion, hands, voices, commands overlapping. Pads slapped onto my chest. The jolt arched my back off the bed. The line stayed flat too long enough for someone to swear under their breath. Then one thin, stubborn blip. Back. Not strong, just present. The surgeon leaned over me, breath ragged, sweat streaking her temple. She said my name sharply, like trying to anchor me. Asked where my wife was. I tried to answer. Nothing came out. My throat burned from the tube they'd shoved down earlier, every word scraping raw. A nurse bent close, reading my eyes. Overseas. She nodded once. We need her. Now. It took 45 minutes to find the right number. Assistants, operators, layers designed to keep the world away from people like her. When someone finally answered, the nurse didn't soften it. She said the words that cut through everything. He's dying. The voice on the other end hardened instantly. Asked where we were. Asked why no one had been notified sooner. The nurse answered with a flatness that felt heavier than anger. Said my family wasn't here. Said they'd gone out to eat. The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. Don't let him die, the voice said finally. She's coming. I heard the helicopter before I saw anything. A low, violent thrum that grew until the windows trembled. Staff rushed to look. Someone asked who authorized it. Someone else stopped mid-sentence. The aircraft dropped into the emergency bay like it owned the air. Black, silver. Corporate insignia bright against the metal. The downwash sent papers and people scattering. Security ran and slowed when the doors opened. She stepped out in a tailored suit and heels sharp enough to bruise concrete. She didn't run. She didn't have to. The hallway bent around her movement. Guards tried to intercept. Her head of security lifted them aside without breaking stride. She entered my room like gravity had shifted. Where is his family? Her voice was calm, lethal. The surgeon stammered something about dinner. My wife already knew. She held up her phone screen glowing with transaction details. Restaurant name, timestamp. Second bottle ordered. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Then she looked at me. Really looked. The control cracked. Just for a second. I managed to whisper, something stupid and familiar. She answered softly, fingers locking around mine, warm and unyielding. Told me not to apologize. Told me not to die. The last word caught, just slightly. The surgeon cleared her throat, reciting facts like armor. Critical condition. Multiple organ failure. 4 cardiac arrests. Aggressive support required. Dialysis. Possibly machines to keep my heart moving if it failed again. She needs authorization, the surgeon said carefully. Your family was hesitant. My wife's grip tightened. Hesitant, she repeated, tasting the word. Then her gaze sharpened, all emotion sealed away. Tell me exactly what he needs, she said, and assume the answer is yes. The room exhaled, and somewhere far away my parents were still finishing dinner. They're no longer relevant. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It cut straight through the corridor like a blade through glass. She stepped closer to the bed, shoulders squared, eyes steady. I'm his wife. I'm his legal medical proxy. Cost is not a factor. Do whatever keeps him alive. The surgeon's posture collapsed with visible relief, like someone finally allowed to breathe. She nodded once, already moving. Specialists, calls, protocols that had been waiting for permission no one else would give. When she mentioned a renowned expert, hesitated about the hour, my wife didn't even blink. I don't care if he's at a wedding. Charter whatever you need. Her phone was already in her hand, messages flying out faster than anyone could track. She leaned in then, close enough that I could feel her breath. You should have called me. I tried to shake my head, tried to explain. She cut me off gently. I would have walked out of that room mid-sentence, she said. You know that. You've always known that. Her forehead hovered just above mine, her voice dropping. You matter more than any deal. Footsteps echoed down the hallway not long after. Laughter, loud, relaxed. My parents' voices, full and satisfied, like nothing in the world had gone wrong. They stopped short when they saw her standing there. Still, composed, waiting. Oh, there you are, my mother said, pitching her voice higher, softer, fake. If we'd known you were back, we would have stayed. Stayed, my wife repeated, turning slowly. While his heart stopped, while his organs shut down, while 4 doctors begged you to sign forms. My father stepped forward, jaw tight, already defensive. He started talking numbers, bills, stress. She cut him off with a single sentence. I know, I paid it. Silence snapped tight. All of it, she continued, including the cosmetic procedure debt you've been ignoring? My mother's color drained. She stammered a question she didn't finish. I had my attorneys review everything, my wife said calmly. Loans, collections, credit cards, it's gone. She smiled then. Not warmth, precision. You're welcome. My father bristled, muttering something about pride, about charity. She didn't look away. You were willing to gamble his life over money you didn't even owe anymore. A voice cut in from behind. Too bright, too casual. My sister, phone already raised. This is insane, she said. But wow, the lighting. Put it down, my wife said quietly. She didn't. One step. That's all her security needed. The phone wobbled in my sister's grip. You spent today filming yourself, my wife continued, eyes never leaving my parents, while your brother died and came back 4 times. My sister scoffed, muttered that he'd always been dramatic. That was when my wife finally looked at her. The change was subtle and terrifying. He's hours away from a point we can't come back from, she said, each word measured. Hours from being gone. No one spoke. Doctors appeared then, momentum shifting instantly. Updates, timelines, equipment flying in from across the country. My mother found her voice again, thin and trembling. Who's paying for all this? I am, my wife said. The way you should have. Someone muttered that it was easy for her to say. She turned slowly. I worked myself into the ground to build what I have, she said, and now I'm using it for the only reason that matters. She looked back at me, because that's what you do when you love someone. And for the first time since my heart started failing, I knew exactly who was fighting for me, and who never had. Her voice dropped, quiet, precise, lethal. So, she asked, tilting her head slightly, what's your excuse for not doing the same? My father's face flushed deep red. He opened his mouth, searching for authority he no longer had. You can't speak to us like this. She didn't answer him. She lifted her hand instead. 4 men appeared as if summoned by gravity itself. Not hospital staff, not rent-a-guards. These men filled the hallway with their presence alone. Tailored suits stretched over bodies built for violence, eyes flat, unreadable. These 3, my wife said calmly, not even looking at my parents, are banned from this floor, from this hospital. If they come within 50 feet of my husband again, call the police and have them arrested for trespassing. My father's voice cracked. You can't do that. He's our son. She turned to him slowly. Then you should have acted like it. That was it. She dismissed them with a flick of her fingers, the way you wave off something buzzing and irritating. Instantly, hands were placed, firm, professional, guiding my family backward. My father protested, loud and desperate. My mother threatened lawsuits between gasps of outrage. My sister tried to film until one of the men gently removed the phone from her hand, like it weighed nothing. I watched through the glass as they were escorted down the hallway. Faces twisted, pride collapsing in real time. The elevator door slid shut and sealed them away. My wife turned back to me immediately, the steel melting from her expression. Dr. Cross is the best, she said softly. You're going to be fine. She squeezed my hand, grounding, real. Then, almost casually, she added, Oh, and I called the restaurant while I was in the helicopter. I blinked weakly. Told them your family is permanently banned from all 7 locations. She leaned closer, her lips brushing my ear, voice edged with something darkly amused. Then I bought the chain. Closed the deal 20 minutes ago. They're banned from every location in the state. Even with a heart that wouldn't behave and organs barely cooperating, I smiled. When did you do that? I rasped. The moment I heard they went out to dinner. She brushed my hair back gently. Nobody orders Cabernet while my husband flatlines. The specialist arrived just after 9. Younger than I expected. Sharp eyes. Hands that moved like they'd already solved the problem before speaking. He scanned charts, asked clipped questions, then nodded once. We're putting him on mechanical cardiac support, changing antibiotics. I've seen this strain before. What you've been doing isn't enough. Do it, my wife said instantly. Another specialist arrived near midnight. Small, gray-haired, legendary. The room filled with motion again. Tubes, machines. Words I didn't understand. Blood rerouted, organs assisted. Time bent. Through it all, she never left. She stood by my bed for hours, suit still crisp, dark circles forming beneath her eyes, coordinating my care while taking calls in languages that snapped and flowed like code. At one point, a nurse checked my vitals and paused when she saw her still standing. "You should rest," the nurse said gently. "I'll rest when he's stable." "You've been on your feet for 9 hours." She smiled faintly. "I've done longer." The nurse laughed despite herself, then grew serious. "I've been doing this 15 years, she said quietly. "I've seen families do terrible things." She hesitated. "Your husband's parents are the worst I've ever seen." My wife nodded once. "I know." "I shouldn't say this," the nurse added, lowering her voice. "But I'm glad you banned them." "So am I." By the 7th day, something shifted. Numbers that had only fallen finally began to rise. For the first time in a week, my body stopped surrendering. The numbers finally turned. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough to make the room breathe again. Enzymes dropping, infection markers retreating for the first time in a week. Doctors gathered at the foot of my bed, charts in hand, voices lower now, careful, almost reverent. "He's responding," the surgeon said, and there was something fragile in her tone, like she didn't quite trust the words yet. The specialist nodded. The new protocol was working. The machine supporting my heart was buying it time. The kidney doctor actually smiled, an unguarded human smile, and said we might ease off dialysis sooner than expected. My wife closed her eyes. Just for a second. When she opened them, they shone. She didn't let anything fall in front of me. She nodded once, sharp, controlled, then stepped into the hallway. I heard it then. Quiet, broken, real. Not the sound of power or command, just fear finally leaving her lungs. A minute later, she came back, face dry, posture perfect. "Okay," she said, squeezing my hand. "Now we hold them accountable." I blinked, slow. She explained calmly. "Neglect? Endangerment." The words sounded distant, unreal, until she said the one thing I couldn't deny. They'd let me die. Repeatedly. Over money they didn't even owe. The case moved fast, too fast to escape. Footage surfaced, edited, clinical, impossible to argue with. My parents debating cost while doctors begged. My mother scrolling during a code. My father checking his watch. My sister filming herself while alarms screamed. The internet didn't hesitate, it never does. Sponsors vanished. Deals collapsed. Doors closed quietly and permanently. They settled without a trial. Every dollar went to people who needed it more than I ever would. Recovery was slow. Months of machines, surgeries, learning to trust my body again. Therapy to unpack the silence between heartbeats, the way abandonment feels when it wears familiar faces. But I healed. 5 months after I almost died from something routine, my wife brought the helicopter back. Same bay. Same wind tearing at everything loose. I laughed as they helped me in, breath shaky but real. She smiled and told me she knew exactly who she married. As we lifted away, I looked down at the building that had held my life in its hands. The window where everything broke, where everything changed. She squeezed my hand once. "Welcome back," she said. And I knew then, family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when your heart gives up.